Every single day, millions of us find ourselves completely lost, just watching something incredibly simple. Dough being folded, a knife moving in perfect rhythm, coffee brewing. It's this quiet, global thing, and when you stop and think about it, it's kind of strange, right? We're absolutely captivated by the creation of food we will never, ever get to taste.
So yeah, that's the big question, isn't it? For most of human history, watching someone cook was practical. You watched to learn, to survive. But that's not what's happening now. We're watching meals from countries we've never been to, made by total strangers. This isn't about learning a recipe anymore. It's something much, much deeper. It's psychological. I mean, think about most of the stuff we watch. There's usually a story, right? A narrative. But not here. There's no character development, no big conflict, no surprise twist at the end.
And on top of that, nobody's talking. There are no clever lines to quote, no conversations to follow. The whole thing happens in this beautiful quiet, just punctuated by the sounds of making something. So, if there's no plot and no dialogue, what's left?
What's left is just the process. That's it. The whole appeal, the whole hook, is the journey itself. It's watching simple ingredients transform step by step into something else. And as it turns out, our brains are just absolutely wired to love that.
Okay, so let's dig into the science of it all. Why does watching someone else work so methodically feel so good? This has nothing to do with hunger. It's all about structure and how our minds are built to respond to it.
This really gets to a fundamental part of how we're wired. Our brains are basically pattern recognition machines. We are constantly, subconsciously, looking for order, for repetition, for things we can predict. And watching food being made, it's like the perfect food for that part of our brain. It's a clean, orderly sequence of events that we can follow without any effort at all.
And these videos give our brain the perfect little loop it craves. You start with the raw ingredients, that's the beginning. You watch them get chopped, mixed, and cooked, that's the middle. And then you see the finished product. That feeling of completion, of seeing something through from start to finish, actually gives us this little hit of calm. It's a tiny story that always has a satisfying ending.
But this love for process, it's more than just a neat little brain trick. It actually plugs into a much deeper emotional need that so many of us feel in our modern lives.
Just think about our daily lives for a second. It's often, it's chaotic, right? Notifications pop up demanding our attention, plans change in a second, outcomes feel uncertain. But the world inside these videos, it's the complete opposite. Every single step follows a set of rules. Every action has a clear, predictable result. It's a little bubble of absolute order. So when we watch, it's almost like we get to borrow that feeling of order. Even though we're just passively sitting there, watching someone else execute a plan perfectly, it kind of restores this sense of control that might be missing from the rest of our day. It's this quiet little reminder that, yes, things can actually make sense. And it's not just a mental thing either. This is where it gets even more interesting. These videos create this surprisingly physical experience. An illusion so powerful, it can almost feel like you're right there. The sound design is everything. These specific, clean sounds, they're triggers. For a lot of people, they create what's called ASMR, that tingly, calming sensation. Because the sounds are so focused with no distracting background noise, our brain reads them as safe, intimate, and important. It triggers a sensory response without anything actually touching us.
And because of that intense focus on sound, our brains start to, they fill in the blanks. You hear the sizzle in a pan, and your brain remembers the feeling of warmth. You hear a crust crackle, and you can almost feel the texture. The experience is so focused that, as the source says, watching becomes almost tactile.
Have you ever noticed what these videos almost always focus on? Not faces, not personalities, just hands. Hands that are kneading, pouring, carefully placing something. Hands signal intention, they signal skill, and a very human touch. It makes the whole thing feel personal and grounded, even if the creator is totally anonymous. So when you start putting all of these pieces together, the pattern recognition, that feeling of control, the sensory experience, you start to realize this trend isn't just some fleeting internet thing. It's tapping into something really ancient and fundamental about who we are. We live in a world that is obsessed with the final result, the big win, the end goal. But these videos, they do something kind of radical. They celebrate the middle part. They remind us that the way things are made, the actual journey of creation, has its own beauty and its own value.
And this really connects us back to a core human experience. For thousands of years, people gathered around a fire, around a table, to make food. It was a shared, focused activity that built community. Watching these videos in our own quiet, digital way is like a little echo of that ancient ritual. It's a moment to just appreciate patience, to witness craft, and to share in a single, calming focus.
So, in the end, this is why we watch. It's not because we're hungry for the food, we're hungry for what the process gives us. It's a reliable dose of calm in an unpredictable world. It's a moment of order, a little bit of sensory comfort, and a connection to the very human act of making something. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? In this world that's so focused on the destination, maybe we've started to forget the simple, profound joy of the journey. Maybe all those millions of hours we spend watching are not just about food. Maybe it's a collective, quiet search for the satisfaction of just watching something get made.